The session just after lunch is normally in a very lazy mode, but I must say that we have two very learned speakers who definitely won't let you sleep, despite having such a subject. I now request CA Anup Kumar Dwarka to escort Mr. Devojiti Rai Chaudhary and Mr. Abhijay Diwanji to the dais. As a protocol, now let me introduce the speakers. Sri Devojiti Rai Chaudhary is MD and CEO of National E-Governance Service Limited, which is popularly known as NESL. Mr. Chaudhary is an MBA from the Faculty of Management Studies, Delhi, and Certified Associate of the Indian Institute of Bankers. His articles on issues related to insolvency have been published in reputed publications, national newspapers, and he has also been a speaker in numerous seminars or workshops related to corporate insolvency, and also in educational institutions like NLUs. Prior to joining ICAI, he was at the corporate office of India's largest bank, SBI, where he was responsible for compliance and risk and implementation of the insolvency and bankruptcy code at its largest business vertical. He was conferred the Business Excellence and Innovative Best Practices Academy Awards by the New Delhi Institute of Management. Friends, I welcome Mr. Chaudhary on behalf of the entire. I now request C. Anil Kumar Anchalia to please come forward and offer a memento to Mr. Chaudhary, along with the dupatta. Another dignitary on the dais is Sri Abhijay Diwanji, partner of the restructuring and turnaround team of EY India. Abhijay Diwanji is a partner for the restructuring and turnaround team at EY India. He is a rank holder, chartered accountant, and holds a bachelor degree in commerce. Abhijay is very active in the financial service sector and the distressed debt fund based on financial services of mergers and acquisitions. He has been involved within the Indian banking and non-banking financial services companies, insurance companies, asset reconstruction firms, fund investors, and for over 2 decades. Apart from advising over 100 transactions, overseeing around 50 restructurings, Abhijay has also been instrumental in 2 global insolvency resolutions, that is Lehman Brothers and MF Global. He is also a part of the key industry and government advisory bodies. He was member of task force for RBI on development of secondary market for corporate loans and is currently a member of the task force on EIRC regulations. Please give him a big round of applause. Now I request CS Arun Kumar Khandelia to come forward and offer a memento to Mr. Diwanji. Well, in technical sessions, there are 2 learned speakers, and without wasting of time, I would like to hand over the proceedings to them. And first, I will request Mr. Diwanji to kindly give his presentation.
Thank you, and thank you, sir, and welcome everybody to the post-lunch, as I call it, the graveyard session. Because it is the graveyard session, and because none of the legal luminaries are already here, they've all gone, and because the memento has already been presented to me and nobody can take it back, let me talk about a few provocative things before I come to my topic, which is bad bank and IBC. So I've been hearing very patiently the very first session, the second session that we had with the legal luminaries. And I did not ask few questions deliberately because we are not in a habit to speak in front of judges. Our counsels do. Because there was no counsel, I was unable to talk in front of the judge. But now I can talk freely because we are among friends. Firstly, the learned Supreme Court counsel mentioned that not everybody makes a mistake deliberately. Some make a mistake inadvertently. My question is, why do you start with the presumptions that IBs make mistakes? Why can't we be doing our jobs well? We start with a very negative perception that what we are doing is incorrect. And unfortunately, the profession accepts it. So I would urge, rather than talk about the same issues in every seminar, can we change our mindset and sometimes rise up to a judge and say, I'm sorry, I have not done something wrong. And you may get away with it. I am doing that right now in my resolution issue. I am the first one who is trying to sell assets even before the NCLT is passed its judgment. And I am saying this in an open forum. I am selling assets. I am selling assets even at a discount where I believe that the price is right and is good for the company. And let any judge question it, I will answer it. I think we need to have the conviction that what we are doing is correct. Somebody gave the example of a surgeon. We inherently trust surgeons, that's why we never question them. Do you know how many operations they do which go wrong? What if a surgeon was told before his operation that if you mess up this operation, I will take you to court? वो कर ही नहीं पाएगा. But there is an inherent trust in him. I think this profession needs to have that inherent trust. The learned NCLT judge mentioned that, oh, we are adjudicators. There cannot be a timeline to us. But we are executors. How can there be a timeline to us? Try dealing with people. I am dealing in this August city with one of the most influential promoters of this city. And it is impossible to deal with it. Do you think we can do a resolution in 333 days? But we still do it. Because the essence of IBC is, spirit of IBC is that resolutions have to happen in a timely manner. When will of course realize that? I hope sooner than later the IBC completely breaks up. I take the point of the learned Supreme Court judge on the fact that MSMEs have to be protected. I'm for it actually. That's a very good, and I think if this is the forum which will start a debate on it, I think we should clearly have it. How much will we be heard in IBBI, I don't know, but at least we can have a debate. And very clearly, MSMEs are like Silicon Valley Bank. They don't have the ability to take mark-to-market losses. If their largest supplier decides to stop buying things from them, they will die. If their largest supplier doesn't pay, the largest customer does not pay them money, they will die. Unlike a large corporate who will have 10 other customers and can possibly survive. So there is a need for protection. However, protection and sometimes socialism and creditor rights are a very thin line to draw. And we need to be careful where we need to protect our credit markets and where we need to protect our operating creditors. Though there is a fairly ridiculous proposition upon the table to say that secured creditors should be paid only liquidation value and the balance should be divided equally among secured and unsecured creditors. I think that will kill the credit markets because it will be extremely difficult to raise money. So we have to come up with slightly better solutions to this. My last point on IBC before I move to my topic, and sorry for diversion, I just want to wake up everybody, that's the reason I said that. The last issue is, I can have this debate later on, possibly a full lecture on it. But we think about legislative amendments to IBC. In my opinion, IBC is an extremely mature law, practiced by highly immature people. Whether they are insolvency professionals, whether they are lawyers, whether they are resolution applicants, whether they are corporates. We are not implementing the spirit of it. And unless we get to the spirit of it, any amount of plugging of holes will not help. You need 42 NCLT judges, you can appoint all 42. But if the caliber is what we already had, you're not going to make any difference to IBC, I can assure you. So frankly, while there is a complete law that governs insolvency professionals in the IBBI and there is a more than necessary supervision over us, there needs to be a code of conduct for the tribunal to be decided by the Supreme Court, and there needs to be a code of conduct for the creditors, whom the Supreme Court itself has given the status of having extreme wisdom. And we can have a separate topic and a separate discussion whether creditors do have extreme wisdom or not, but that for another day. Alright, I will stop with that. These are points to ponder as you go along. Topic I have today is the bad bank and IDC. And I would like to focus quickly on that. So, bad bank is a global concept. And globally, bad banks have been set up. In the US, when the 2008 crisis happened, they set up something called cash for clunkers. It was a bad bank. Europe set up a bad bank to park all their assets. But in those structures, primarily the government put in capital and then the government had a resolution. So for example, in the US, in 2008, almost every bank sold a large stake to the government. The government did not nationalize it. The government held the stake but had private management. And as the bank stock rose between 2008 and 2013-14, the government made phenomenal amount of money. But there were equity positions that day. Assets were getting resolved, the mortgage assets in those companies were getting resolved. And as the mortgage market picked up, because it's a cycle, what happened in the US is that suddenly the mortgage prices crashed in 2008. House prices crashed. Because house prices crashed, the collateral was not there and the banks had to take huge hits. But as the housing cycle improved over time, the recoveries happened. Exactly why the premise of the bad bank is. So I was involved, fortunate enough to involve in the think through of this whole bad bank concept. Right from the time SBI and Union Bank took the lead of thinking through it, I was involved in the process. So what is important is to conceptualize a structure. What should be the bad bank structure? Who should own it? And how should the operation be? What we did in India is we decided to have a two-entity structure. We decided to have a public sector entity called NARCL, National Asset Reconstruction Company. And this company was to acquire assets from public sector banks primarily and private sector banks more possible. They were to acquire the assets under what is famously called the 1585 structure, which is you pay 15% of the fair value of that asset upfront cash and 85% you issue paper to the respective banks. So as and when the recovery happens, the bank gets the upside. 1585 structure, NARCL would buy the debt. Then they had a private sector company called IDRC, which is a debt resolution company. Now this debt resolution company had resolution professionals, not RPs, but people who are expert in resolving debts, to come and join, and those people would then turn around those assets. And that was private sector so that they can hire the best talent at the right price. And the way they achieved the private and public sector was that NARCL is predominantly held by PSU banks and IDRCL is predominantly held by private sector banks. So banks are the shareholders, stakeholders who have put in capital, and this NARCL, IDRCL concept has been built. However, there is a little bit of an anomaly in the structure, and the anomaly in the structure is that NARCL has got a ARC license, but IDRCL, which is the management company, is just a management company without being governed by RBI. So what has happened is RBI has put all the onus of resolution on NARCL because that is the regulated entity. So IDRCL that way becomes an advisor to NARCL and keeps advising them on resolution of assets. NARCL is the actual holder of IRB assets. The other thing that the government did, instead of putting capital, they asked PSU banks to put capital and private sector banks to put capital. What they did is they said up to 60,000 crores of SRs, for which you are going to issue 85% SRs to the banks back, will be backed by a government guarantee which is valid for 5 years. So if the asset is resolved or not resolved within a period of 5 years, if it's resolved, then obviously the money will be given. But if it is under resolved, then the price, then the difference can be claimed from the government by way of a guarantee. So the banks are that way protected that they will not incur a loss beyond the price at which they have sold it to NIRC. Now that's the structure that's been given. Tax and regulatory aspects are the other aspects which are very deeply looked at as to how we structure it. At this point in time, frankly, the biggest issue on tax that one faces is how do you get domestic or foreign AIF to actually purchase SRs. This is an industry issue, applicable not only to NIRC but applicable to everybody. And the basic difference is that if you have a foreign FPI invest in SRs, it's a pass-through structure. And the pass-through is that the taxation happens at the FPI level directly. But if it's a domestic AIF, domestically registered AIF, which purchases SRs, then the AIF is taxed at a 40% business income. So it becomes, it is a non-level playing field between an FPI and an AIF. And that is one of the prime reasons why we are not able to raise domestic funds in India to do this. There is a lot of representation happening, but NIRC itself has represented that they can actually ultimately raise a fund as long as the tax issue is resolved. Third is the governance framework. We have paid a lot of attention on this as to how to make sure governance frameworks are right. ARCs, as you know, and at this point in time, the newspaper reports talk about 4 ARCs who have been caught by RBI on governance. Don't know what happened to them. But governance has generally been a negative factor of most ARCs. And the effort now is to make sure that these ARCs have a governance structure, and RBI has been very strict about it now, to make sure that all the board members of an ARC need to be approved by RBI. So it happened with NIRC also. So there is a big governance structure has to be set up. How do you purchase assets? How do you dispose of assets? Do you have a good follow-on mechanism to make sure that the assets are recovered in due time or not? Those kind of issues. Fourth is the asset segregation and portfolio review. How do you make sure what is the resolution strategy of these assets? And I think that needs to be decided. NIRCL has done that bit also. Onboarding of investors. NIRCL is yet to get investors outside of the banking system. They just acquired Shrey, and I will talk about that whole example. They are the successful resolution applicants for Shrey, and they have committed 4,800 crores to buying Shrey. So a large sum of money from NIRCL has been their largest deal. And monitoring of performances. So I'm just telling you, this platform has to be made in such a robust manner that there is credibility that comes to it. Pretty much like RP spend. We need to build our credibility, they need to build their credibility. Now I explained a lot of this. IDRCL is to provide end-to-end support services for acquisition, operational management and resolution. IDRCL will also provide services exclusive to NIRCL. That's the structure that they have devised. There's an agreement to that effect. IDRCL shall not undertake any other activity without the prior condition of NIRCL. We have said this primarily because IDRCL at some stage could become a fund manager of an AIF as and when regulations open. And because it is the same platform where the fund will be provided by the AIF and the resolution will be done by the ARC, it's possible that IDRCL may actually take over a role of a resolution provider end to end. And by the way, such structures exist in ARCs today. SSG is an example, Apollo is an example, Arcid is now an example. Arcid is now also owned by private equity funds. Now the decision-making process also is being defined. I don't want to go into too much detail because again post that session, but there's a full definition of how the resolution process will happen, acquisition process will happen. I don't mind if the slides are distributed to participants at some stage. But we went through this whole process right now for Shrey, where assets are identified first. There is a very detailed review done internally to figure out how we will resolve assets. So the chunk of all this acquisition strategy is that first NIRCL will decide how they will resolve an asset. Then they will buy. This is quite opposite to what IRCs have been doing for the last 15 years of their existence. They have been buying assets at whatever price because their main interest and the fee structure of an ARC, including that of NIRCL, is they earn a fixed fee on the value of the SRs and then they earn an upside fee on the amount that they collect. But if you value the SRC, if a loan is worth 100 rupees, if you value it at 200 rupees, you double the fees that you make anyway. And in 3 years, the amount of fees that you make is so sufficient that you don't care whether the recovery happens or not. So that's why in NARCL it was very much decided upfront that let's have a strategy how we will resolve an asset. So in Shrey, they actually went through every asset to decide how the resolution will happen. It's documented and approved by the board of NARCL as well as IDRCL to say this is how we will bid for the asset. Now there are some clear benefits of this structure. The biggest problem facing Indian debt resolution was aggregation. To give you an example, of a company called Acae Limited, Bombay-based logistics company. We were trying to accumulate the debt in Edelweiss EIRC. We had to approach 14 banks. It took us 3 years to accumulate that debt. Now the only reason IBC is preferred is accumulation happens on day one. Because you come under the IBC process, 66% approval hai, all the creditors have to follow. That is not the case when you are doing outside of IBC. And if you want this model to work outside of IBC, very clearly the need is that aggregation becomes extremely important. Now if aggregation takes 3 years, then your recovery is bound to suffer. Your IRRs are bound to suffer. Because till you actually aggregate at least 70% of the debt, you are not going to be able to do one thing on resolution. So it's idle money for 2 to 3 years till you acquire at least 70%. That was a big thing. The purpose of NARCL was the banks will sell on an aggregated basis to NARCL. So NARCL will acquire all loans in a particular corporate at one time. That was the aim. It allows banks to clearly deleverage the balance sheets. It's amazing, I was just doing some analysis. Despite saying, every bank saying that the credit problem is over and we have strong balance sheets, we have 7.5 lakh crores of NPLs still sitting in the banking sector. 7.5 lakh crores. And we don't bother deleveraging because we are adequately provided and it's not going to impact our balance sheets anymore. And the senior management has already started doing everything else. So there is nobody who is interested. But as a nation, we have 7.5 lakh crores of bad debts still stuck in the system. So for all of us, there is a lot more work to do, provided the bank decided to take some action. There is no initial infusion of funds from the government of India. It's very clear because the banks are infusing the funds. The government is only giving a guarantee. It becomes an integrated resolution platform, as we said. The other important aspect is once you have aggregated debt, it creates an ability to create a secondary market for distressed assets. So there is SEBI regulation already available to create a distressed market, and there is interest in getting that done. And I think there will be overall value maximization because there will be professional management. And I have decided the 1585 structure, funding will come from EIRCs. So I'll try and skip this slide because this really says what are the advantages of an EIRC. I'll now come to how they have done. I thought the best way to explain the correlation between an NARCL is to actually talk about real transaction. So I will talk about shape. It's in the courts. The resolution plan is in the courts. I've tried to avoid putting any numbers here, but I've tried to explain the structure as to how this works. So Shrey has two companies. It's a company called Shrey Infrastructure. There's a company called Shrey Equipment Manufacturers. Shrey Infrastructure was legacy into doing infrastructure loans. And Shrey Equipment was into doing equipment loans, especially moving equipment or moving equipment and stuff. That's how they ran their operations. Before the CIRP, they did a structure where Shrey actually merged or transferred its infrastructure business from Shrey Infrastructure Finance to Shrey Equipment. So then Shrey Equipment became the asset holding entity and Shrey Infrastructure became the holding company of the investments. Just the holding company, plain. So it had other investments. So they also had a AIF fund. They were holding other things in there. So that's how it happened. That's why we had corporate debtor 1 and corporate debtor 2. Just to explain to everybody, we filed for two separate insolvencies, Shrey Infra and Shrey Equipment. But every COC meeting, all applications, everything was done jointly. So we created 2 minutes for everything, but it was one meeting, consolidated meeting of the committee of creditors. And that consolidated committee passed separate resolutions with separate percentages of majority, but each of them. That's how we have to do this. Now, when NARCL looked at its bid, first of all, NARCL was skeptical whether they can bid for a company in NCA. Thankfully, ICAI came up with a regulation pursuant to the committee that I was part of, the task force on revamping ARCs. And we said that ARC should specifically be allowed to bid for in IBC cases. And say by virtue of having a net worth of 1,000 crores, which was the requirement, was able to bid for. The condition is that if you bid for Shrey, you have to exit the business in 5 years. So the plan is constrained to be a 5-year plan. I cannot give a plan which says that the loans will be paid over the next 20 years. Then I myself have to exit the position in 5 years. So any resolution plan that I get, which is leveraged, which is where they are issuing debt paper to the banks, that debt has to be within a period of 5 years, because in 5 years, NARCL is mandated to exit Shrey. So what are they doing? They are talking about business rationalization costs in the first 2 years, which NARCL will put in the company. So the company has some balance. NARCL said we will not take over all the balance. Some balance we will keep in the company so that the company keeps running. There was a capital reduction plan. 500 crores was to be infused into the company. And this 500 crores new infusion that's coming into the company would go towards 2 things. One is to rationalize the existing business, and 2, more importantly, to kickstart new business. That's very important. When you try and recover money in a financial services company, unless you are going to run that company on a going concern basis, you cannot recover money. So it's almost impossible. So they said we will start an infrastructure and an equipment rental business. So the plan was to Holdco, which is say infrastructure, which is a Coca company at this point in time, is going to be a new co to start the new business. And SEFL, which is where all the assets have been transferred, will become effectively the bad bank within Shrey, and will focus only on resolution of the Shrey assets. So there will be 2 distinct teams, specialists in reorganization and restructuring, which will sit in the company below, and new business growth, which will sit in the company at the top. Now, will they be talking to each other? Of course they will. That's how the structure is devised. Now, the way they structured the deal, again, to be on the safe side, and because it was the first deal, they issued SRs to the existing lenders of Shrey Group. Those SRs then, so SRs were held. The way it works is, I don't know how many are familiar with ARCs, but I will just explain to you. SRs are issued as consideration to take over the debt by the trust of the ARC. The ARC trust, as you can see here, is the one which issues the SRs and takes over the loans, becomes the owner of the loans from the existing banks. Now, it is the ARC's prerogative to do a restructuring of those loans in the books of Shrey Group. I'll say Shrey Group because it could be anything. Shrey Equipment in this case. What they will do then is they will do a master restructuring agreement. It's called MRA. This master restructuring agreement will say that there is around 23,000 crores of debt sitting in Shrey. We will convert that debt into 4,000 crores of debentures and another 5,000 crores of optionally convertible debentures. Now, how have they protected themselves? Interesting. They said that we have done this master restructuring in the company. The debentures are effectively payable by the company, not by the ARC. The ARC has simply bought SRs which will get redeemed. The company has taken the liability to pay the 4,000 crores of debt. And who's the owner of the company? NARCL is the owner of the company. So because NARCL is the owner of the company, by virtue of that, the banking sector is the owner of the company. And the banking sector in itself will not default. And hence, it is a secured, more or less secured debt, as good as sovereign, as far as the resolution applicants are concerned. Then, you have the optionable convertible debentures, because NARCL said, listen, we don't want to make a gain beyond our normal IRR and fees. If there is a gain, you take it. So, optionally convertible debenture. What does optionally convertible debenture do? To the extent you recover more than 4,000 crores, after my charges, etc., will go towards redeeming the optional convertible debentures. And whatever optional convertible debentures remain at the end of it, will be get converted into equity. You take it. So there can never be an event of default on the optional convertible. So ideally, what has happened as part of the resolution plan, interesting to understand now, what has happened is, NARCL has said that I am committing to you that every rupee of gain will come your way after my charges. So that charges of course are 2% asset management charge per annum and 5% on collections. I undertake in return to pay you 4,000 crores because I am the shareholder of the company. Beyond recovery of 4,000 crores, money is yours after my charges. If I am not able to recover more than that, then at the end of the day, you simply convert it to equity, but it cannot default. So NARCL cannot be a defaulter for optionally convertible. Fairly interesting structure. Using the EIRC thing. Now, why did we use the SRs? And why did we directly invest in debentures and take the company? Because NARCL's mandate is to buy on SRs. But because the SRs are again held by PSU banks, they are as good as sovereign. And we have taken that view. So this is how the existing recovery platform is inside. Then we come to the actual resolution. And when we think about the actual resolution, what they did is that they have segregated assets in various forms. Said, okay, this is the new business that they are, sorry, this is just one of the new business. I'll quickly come to the resolution first. From the resolution, they said, okay, greater than 50 crore portfolio. We identified who are going to be the relationship managers. Assigned legal officers. This structure has already been prepared. See the depth at which people have gone to have a resolution plan. We identified RMs, we have identified legal officers. We have identified on every asset above 50 crores what is going to be the estimated recovery and what is the means of recovery. Will I go into an ODS with him? Will I do a restructuring with him? Will I do interim finance with him? What will I do? Borrowers have been bucketed by means of recovery. Identified what will happen in the next 2 to 3 years. So our intent is that the first we have to target the one-time settlements so that the 4,000 crore liability is paid for. Then all we are paying for is the optional convertible debenture. Whatever comes is screened to the borrowers of straight. If it doesn't come, then too bad. Then there is a whole strategy which is being documented on avoidance transactions also. How will we recover? So this is we insisted on a completely documented strategy. Because unless we have that, we were not confident that the lenders will be able to get the money on. The level of depth is what I am trying to say. What an NARCL did, and I think it is the professional management of NARCL which did. Then for less than 50 crores, very frankly, we simply did a portfolio approach. How do we geographically divide those assets? Again, have a quarterly mechanism system of how we will monitor those assets because they are like retail loans. On a portfolio basis, we will try and recover them, have recovery agents go and file DRTs, etc. and see how we go in those cases. But on an 80-20 rule, more than 70% of the assets are above 50 crores. So if we focus on those, which is like 20% by number, capture 80% by value, we will be home in the next 2 to 3 years. That is the hope. And I say we are talking about NARCL. That's how it has been structured. Then the whole new strategy has been devised and seen through on what will the new business model look like. Divided between, we think there are around a lakh of customers to go on, first-time users, fleet owners, mid-sized contractors, large corporates. We divided between the 3 segments, figure out how we will do each equipment financing business, deployment assistance, various kinds of areas on how we do the full business plan of this. And unless this level of granularity is recorded, it's not that we just asked for a plan, saw the number and said, "Chalo, go." Because now we have decided that numbers don't mean anything. If it's a payable and able structure, it doesn't make sense to do numbers. It makes sense to go into the nitty-gritty of what you're going to do and how you're going to do. So the only emphasis I wanted to make really is that there was a very detailed plan that went through how we will do it. There have been a couple of deals that happened here since the last time. Alok Industries was acquired by Reliance Industries through GMS. Primarily the transaction was done because at that point in time Reliance was barred from the securities market. And they did not want to get disqualified resolution appeal, that's why they did it. So, EIRC gave a payable and able bid for Reliance Infocom, which kind of was rejected by the Infocom player because it basically said, I'll pay you if I collect money. If I don't collect money, I'm not responsible. So those kind of plans, that's really what prompted us to go and have a detailed plan discussion in Sweden. NIRC and Australia, as we just said. The new rules are that RBI says that EIRCs which have a 1,000 crore net worth can now bid for assets. SR-based bids are normally coming in. The ability to structure is the most important. So with that, frankly, I had just wanted to explain to you the correlation between what NIRCL has done and where IBC stands. But the importance is that it's a professional person coming in. And when they come in, we insisted on a very detailed plan on both the new business as well as on the recovery. Why the new business? Because they've also offered the borrowers 20% equity stake in the new business. So it's important for us to evaluate that. So with that, any questions, but I'm not actually. Thank you very much.
Since Mr. Devanji will be leaving, sir, if there is one or two questions, can we take taken?
I'm happy to.
If any questions is there from the audience, from Mr. Devanji. Oh, Mr. Loya has a question. Mike, please.
Sorry, I just have a flight to catch, that's why. No problem.
I think this presentation will be shared.
Yeah.
Hello.
So, share.
So I have just one question in mind while you were discussing on the NIRCL. So when the NIRCL proposed to be a resolution applicant and buy a company or an asset, so what is its long-term agenda? Whether it will resell the company or it will carry on the business, then how do they take it on?
So as I said earlier, Mr. Surya, they have to sell the company. At the end of 5 years, he has no choice. He will build equity value and sell it. So what he is saying is, I'll earn my fees, I'll earn my upside fees and my regular fees, I'll recover as much money. I am interested in passing on all the benefit to you as far as legacy loans are concerned. But whatever new business I make, 80% is mine, I will make equity gain.
Why would I build a business? Because my aim would be the recovery of the money.
He is not killing a business. See, he is setting up two companies. A holdco where he will do new business. And the subsidiary co where he will recover legacy business. That's all. Right. Thank you.
Sir, we'll just take 2 minutes of yourself. I'll request Anup to give a vote of thanks to Mr. Devanji as he will be leaving.
Good afternoon. Thank you, sir. On behalf of entire ECA teams, members, professionals present here, I take the opportunity to extend vote of thanks to our eminent speakers. A powerful and impactful sessions on these complicated topics, acquisition of assets, this is well covered by the sir. And sir, we are really enlightened, and with your knowledge and presence, a heartfully thanks for your contributions, for sharing your topics on these complicated topics. Thank you very much, sir. A big round of applause for the Thank you.
Thank you, sir, very much. Now we'll be leaving because he has to catch a flight. And now I request Mr. Chaudhary to proceed with the session and make his deliberations.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I'd like to thank ACE for having me in this conference. I was asked to speak on emerging role of IU under the code. So I'll first dwell on how the larger ecosystem is evolving, and then I'll dwell on how the IU is playing a role. And let me just state here that it is not just confined to the IBC. It is IBC and beyond. So this chart has been going around social media for some time. And as we all know, India is a global sweet spot as far as economic growth is concerned. And as per this chart, the probability of recession in India is 0. So, what has made this possible? There are 4 drivers of growth which I believe makes this sustainable. I'll dwell first on the physical infrastructure. I came from Bangalore a couple of days back. The new Terminal T2 is opened. It is massive in every sense of the word. And that's not the only one. Delhi Terminal 2, T2 is, T3 is in any case very large, and we have another massive one coming just around 100 kilometers from Delhi. The Jewar International Airport is likely to be inaugurated by 2024. We also have the Goa Airport, which has been inaugurated. We have a Navi Mumbai Airport, which is likely to come up very shortly. We would have seen these massive drone videos of highways coming up. The Bangalore-Mysuru highway, I have travelled, recently come up. So this infrastructure development is happening on a very rapid pace. There are some numbers floating around in social media, and it is said that what is happening in the infrastructure space in the last 10 years has not happened in India in the last 60 years. I don't vouch for this data, but this evidence of this massive infra development is there for us to see. The other pillar of this economic growth is sound banking system. We saw the country's largest lender declare its results yesterday. Massive profits, record profits. All lenders have done well. Is it sustainable? Possibly yes. Today banking is driven by information, it's driven by technology. We believe that this is here to stay. The third pillar is this reforms. First thing which comes to mind is GST. GST is not just about simplification of taxes. It was built on a massive IT infra. So this has a
multiplier effect. It has led to formalization, which in turn has led to better credit delivery. We'll dwell upon this in the later slides. And finally, the fourth and possibly the most important pillar, the digital infrastructure. That's what gives us as a nation a distinct competitive advantage. So the cornerstone of this digital infrastructure is Aadhaar. Sometime in 2014 it was done. Around that time, Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji had this vision. Every Indian should have a bank account. As a banker, I know how difficult it is. KYC, identification. 500 million accounts were opened in the span of a few months. What made it possible? It's Aadhaar, which made digital identification of an individual possible. Another important development, a new service provider came sometime in 15. Mobile usage increased because rates came down. Today, the cost of data in India is possibly among the lowest in the world. Now let's just see some of the important milestones in this journey and where we come in. So I spoke about Aadhaar, I spoke about Jan Dhan, I spoke about mobile penetration. We all know about UPI. It is one area, digital transactions, we have surpassed China. It's unbelievable. In most areas, we are far behind China. But as far as digital transactions are concerned, we have, I repeat, surpassed China. What made it possible? UPI. And UPI would not have been possible without bank account or mobile penetration. I spoke about tax reforms. I referred to GST, but there was another bit of tax reforms regarding direct taxes. Both of them led to formulation of the problem. In fact, GST had a multiplier effect. As I had said earlier, it had an IT base. And it also had a network effect. You have to give the GST of your suppliers. So they were also brought to the formal network. So formalization got a boost. What happened then? Productivity. You would ask how? I'll give an example. In Bangalore, I stay in the Alsur Lake. After my walk, I have a coconut every day. Earlier I used to find there were two guys. One guy used to handle the cash, other guy used to do the coconut. Cash, somebody will give a spoiled note, somebody will give a 2,000 rupee note to buy a 25 rupee coconut. So one person had to exclusively handle that. Today he has just a QR code and there's a speaker attached to it. You just swipe the QR code, the speaker speaks out loud what it's about. He is dispensed with one person who's being used productively. So that's productivity for you. That's a simple example. Credit availability. There are some bankers here. Today the most buzzing space in banking is the MSME space. MSMEs have become more creditworthy. How? Because of formalization. Because the credits are visible in the account, you can assess the working capital. But there was a missing link. You assess the credit. How do you disperse it? You ask the poor guy to come to the branch. You tell him, go and get a stamp paper. He will go to the stamp vendor. Stamp vendor says, 445, go back, come tomorrow. Tomorrow you go, I don't have stamp paper, 100, take 500. And that's when we come in. And that's where you see the green. Launch of DD. Our digital execution platform ensures you do not have to run around for stamp paper. It is procured digitally on a real-time basis for any denomination. And you sign only once. You sign only once through the OTP or the DSC. And as a result, what happens? Seamless credit delivery. Economic Survey 2022-23 has a reference to NESL's DDE. It talks about the various advantages of DDE, which I am going to elaborate in the subsequent slides. But I'll draw your reference to one very important term which has been used in this. The survey uses the word dematerialization. Where does this thus draw its inspiration from? Anyone? Yes? Dematerialization of shares. So NESL's DD has the potential to revolutionize contract execution, the way share trading changed after dematerialization of shares happened in the 90s. And I'll tell you how in the subsequent slides. But before that, let me tell you about ourselves, because you might think, who is this NESL wanting to do DD? So NESL is an information utility. It's the first and only one. It is registered with the IBPI under the provisions of the IPC, and the code has various references to the information utility. And the final point is very important. The code mandates financial creditors to submit information to the IU, and more than 400 lenders are already submitting information to the IU. What is our ownership pattern? We are 65% public sector owned. These are the shareholders, private banks, public sector banks. Now, this is one slide I would like to dwell in some detail. As an infrastructure provider and as a user of such services like you would like to know what is the supervision and control which is exercised by IBPI or the ecosystem on NESL. So, of course, as I said, we are a regulated entity of IBPI, like an insolvency professional. So, board can conduct inspection, board does conduct inspection. We have off-site monitoring. We have a monthly meeting. IBPI has issued guidelines on technical standards. There's also independent audit under Regulation 34, which basically looks at all technical aspects. Then as far as our own corporate governance is concerned, we have a governing board, we have our shareholders, we serve our own banks, and our governing board has a managing director, that's myself, independent director, and one important provision which we as a part of good governance have made. We have constituted our governing board to have a technical member as an independent director on a board of directors. We see the third column. We are also subject to CAG audit. Our statutory auditor is appointed by CAG. We have audit of financial statements, also for operations by CAG. And finally, we also have our own independent technology committee, which is comprised of reputed persons. the chairman of a technology company is also an independent member on a board of directors. Now, this section is about IBC. In the morning, there was a reference to the 4 pillars of IBC, and here it is before you. The 4 pillars. Information utility is a relatively less known pillar, and one of the highlights is that if you see the figure on the right hand side, actually important attributes about ourselves. Whatever we do is time bound. As you know, IBC, every process is time bound. So even our activities are time bound. We are a fully digital repository. And of course, I spoke about governance. We have high standards of governance as provided in the regulations and even as a matter of good governance. So this is the regulatory environment of IU. We are under the IBC and we are regulated by IDBI, and we have to comply with the IDBI IU regulations, and of course, as we are a fully digital repository, IDBI has also come out with these detailed guidelines on technical standards. For example, every person who submits information has to be identified. Every information is submitted under digital signature of the person. So whatever information we store in the IU is of evidentiary value. It can be produced in a court of law. So these are the core services which are provided in the code. As I said earlier, we are a digital repository. We only accept electronic submission. Safe and accurate recording of financial information is one of the duties cast on us by the code. We have to get the information authenticated and verified. And of course, we provide information, we provide access to information stored to persons as is specified in the regulations notified by IDBI. The code also defines as to what is financial information. It's the debt of a person, liabilities of a person, assets of a person, default of course, balance sheet and cash flow statements, and other information as may be specified. Now the question might arise as to where the IU gets this information from. As we saw earlier, Section 250 of the code makes it mandatory for financial creditors to submit information to the IU. And Reserve Bank of India, by its circular of 2017, it has advised all its regulated entities to submit information to the IU. Now, RBI followed it up with another letter dated 2019. This letter is similar to the 17 letter, except that this time RBI is pressed on 2 important things. One, even non-fund based limits, information regarding non-funded exposure is also to be submitted to the IU, and information regarding all customer segments is to be submitted to the IU. As you know, only the corporate segment has been notified for the purpose of IBC, except for PG to CD. But as you will see elsewhere, that some of these provisions related to the IU are equally applicable to non-corporates as well. I will elaborate further as to how it could be beneficial even in the non-corporate segment. So these are some of the important provisions. I am basically touching only upon the application on the sections related to application of CRP proceedings, and the code states that code provides that along with the application for initiation of CRP, the record of default of the IU has to be attached. Of course, it also says that other information can also be used. As of date, that is a legal provision. Now, an important amendment was done in the ICAI IU regulations, and which is important for us as a stakeholder. It is that before initiation of any application under the IDC, information has to be submitted to the information entity. So this is regulation 21. There is a reference in the code to the record of default, and this record of default helps in admission of an application and a CRP. It gives all the information which the AA requires to decide on whether to admit an application under section 7, 9 or 10. And we see what are some of the important provisions. Now, record of default is color coded. Now, IU is a very equitable repository. It gives a debtor an opportunity to dispute a debt or default. So, in case an information is disputed, so then it's marked with the color code of red. And if it is not disputed, if it is accepted, then there's a color code of green. And this is only for information of default. Now in the morning we heard from various stakeholders about delays. I think there were discussions on how even admission of application takes substantial time. Now we as stakeholders could help the AA by using or attaching with the application the record of default. The record of default has all the information which is required by the AA to decide on whether to admit or reject an application for CRP. For example, it gives the details of parties connected to a debt. It gives details of all the history of submission made by the financial creditor. It has information of debt and default. It has details of mails and communications sent with the debtor. As I stated earlier, it gives authentication color code. If it's green, it's accepted. If it's red, it's disputed. An important provision is 65B. Anyone is aware of 65B of Indian Evidence Act? No one? No legal provision? You are aware? Thank you. So 65B basically says digital evidence can be accepted only under certain circumstances. So what we are saying is that when we are issuing this ROD, all the conditions required under 65B are applied. So this certificate is embedded in the record of default, is digitally signed by NESL authorized signatory, so it cannot be forged. When a AA is seeing the record of default, he can be assured it is authentic. It is a one-stop document for the NCLT to ascertain debt, default or dispute. So these are the three things NCLT, the AA is looking at before taking a decision of admission or rejection, and all these are covered in our record of default. So this is a sample of record of default issued by NESL as an IU. As I stated earlier, it gives all the information which AA requires to decide on an application for initiation of CRP. Now, issue, you may think that how does one access information in the IU. And again, this is one of the unique features that one need not, you can of course register and get this information. But if you are a registered user, you will get email notifications from the information utility on occurrence of certain events. What are those events? There are 3 events on occurrence of which a notification goes by mail to the registered user of the IU. The first is when a default has happened. A default has happened by a debtor to one creditor. But if you are a registered user and after the process of authentication, an email notification goes to all the creditors of the debtor. Similarly, an application is filed by one creditor against a debtor. So if you are a registered user, you will get a mail from the information utility that this application has been filed by such creditor, and you can take steps to protect your interest. Similarly, as you are aware, an IP has to make a public announcement for asking for submission for claims. In case the creditor misses out on this public announcement, if he is registered on the IU, he will get a notification from the IU where a public announcement has been done. Please do submit your claims. So these are the services which we offer. Intimation services is what I spoke about earlier. Information services are what we can register, log in and see. And we also have this credit monitoring services. Analytical reports at the macro level are there on our website, so we can have a sense of the general behavior of creditors and debtors over a period of time at a macro level. So one very important judgment in respect of the record of default of the IU was that in the case of process judgment of Honorable Inclat in the matter of Vipul Himatlasha, and it states that in case the record of IU showed that there is debt which is in default, A of the applicant appellate authority is not required to further examine whether the record maintained by the IU, more so the record of the IU is deemed to be authenticated and no dispute or refutation of such records has been done by the CPE. So it just supports the fact that if the ROD is attached with the application, it makes the admission of CRP, admission into CRP that much easier. So it makes the job of the A easier and it helps the entire ecosystem. So even though it's not mandatory, it's strongly encouraged that this application be attached, this ROD attached along with the application for initiation CRP. On 3rd of April 2023, NCLT has also issued a circular stating that before filing of application section 7 or 9, the creditor shall file the information of default with IU. And it said that petitioners under section 7 and 9 are advised to comply with the said regulations and produce the record of default for effective hearing of the case. Now I was also asked to speak about emerging role of IU in IBC. As you are aware, MCA had come out with this discussion paper and public comments they called for. And some of the proposals I have just put here that A, to rely only on the ROD available with the IUs to determine if a default has occurred. ROD of the IU is to be treated as conclusive proof of occurrence of default. And only when the record of default is not available with the IU, the A, on genuine reasons to be shown, may consider other evidence. Finally, in this section, concluding slide of this section, because I recall when these discussions were going on, so there was one debate as to whether the IU has the infrastructure, has the attributes of infrastructure to provide this very important role of giving an ROD which could be used by applications, used by applicants. So IU has a risk management framework. Our executive director, she reports to me. She is also a chief risk officer. We have a policy of non-discrimination. We are also only a custodian of the information, and we also have a preservation policy. So this is one of the very new products which we have done, which we have launched. And I'd just like to quote this, and this was stated by a CEO of a very large digital company. I would not like to take any names here, but I think most of you can guess who is it. You know, he said, the guys at the bank sent me the loan documents for IPO financing, a total of some 200 pages. There were some pages you had to sign multiple times. I could never understand the point of multiple signatures, other than to remind you that taking a loan should not be easy. How many of us have taken a loan here and signed a loan document? So how many times have you signed, sir? 50, 100? So in digital document execution, you sign only once. And after you sign the agreement, did you get a copy of the loan agreement immediately? So in digital document execution of NASL, you get the copy instantaneously. The moment this document is signed and sealed, you get a copy of the same immediately. And we'll give you some figures to show that this is a movement which is gathering steam. And we as stakeholders should take the benefit of this. So this is how the genesis, one question which might come in your mind as to why the information utility came into this. So this is because proof of debt has to be in any case attached along with the application. We had a provision for attaching documents, but banks were having challenges attaching volumes of scanned documents. There were also challenges in submission. So that's why we thought we'd have this, a platform where both the creditor and debtor can sign. And it becomes a source and evidence of the debt, which can be used, one, if you're initiating CRP, and secondly, for any other process. For example, if you are doing a merger acquisition, I think I met one participant here who said he was in merger and acquisitions. So typically, when you are doing due diligence of documents, original documents are usually not shared, only photocopies are shared. So then you have to scrutinize the documents twice. Photocopied documents are not always very clear. Here, all digital documents are there for you to scrutinize. Only once. And you are assured they are the originals. There is only one original. So these are the benefits. It's the digital stamp, it's the e-sign, and it's also customer delight. Remember, customers otherwise being forced to sign at 40, 50, 200 places. It's there 24/7. Your bank staff is free. Even the customer can execute the document at any point of the day. Secure storage by entity which is regulated under ICAI. And of course, cost saving. So some of the other benefits I have just enumerated here: no multiple bank visits, no multiple signatures, you sign only once, no hassles of signature mismatch, it's web-based, mobile-friendly. All of us are familiar with social media, we can adopt that very easily. Audit logs are available. No question of somebody saying that I was not there at that point of time. The entire evidence, the log, the audit is maintained. And of course, there are 3 modes of signature: dongle-based e-sign, biometric, or Aadhaar OTP based. There are various benefits of digital signature compared to a physical signature. And if anybody has any doubts, I can elaborate, but I think it's quite self-evident. So these are some of the benefits for every stakeholder. And on the left-hand side, there's a green box. I put it in green because digital document execution is also environment friendly. Till date, we have estimated that we have saved 5,000 trees, because every document printing means you have to cut a tree. So digital document execution not just is easy to store, easy to retrieve, but it is also environment friendly. Financial creditors, banks benefit, end customers benefit, the governments also benefit. The governments benefit because they get real-time advice on the stamp duty collections which are happening, which region has more of stamp duty collection, which in turn is a reflection of the level of economic activity in that region. As a regulated entity, we go to a 3-point check before permitting any kind of digital document execution. There's a regulatory check, there's an IT check, and there's an article check. So this is just to reassure all our stakeholders that what we are doing is right. So DD has various security features which are mandated by law, and I think I just have 5 minutes, so I'll just quickly conclude. But before concluding, a couple of things I'd like to stress upon, because I'm in this beautiful and fertile land of Kolkata. So I'd like to give you some statistics related to West Bengal. And of course, I'd like to urge all of you to see how we can make a difference. So as I said, DD is a movement which has been unleashed. You cannot stop it. It's like a genie out of the can. And can anyone see where does West Bengal stand? Where does West Bengal stand? Anyone? Where does West Bengal stand? And where is not yet bottom, near bottom. So number 1 state is UP, number 2 is Rajasthan, and so on. But this is the urge to all of you. Please, you can make a difference. If you are a bank, most of your offices in other parts of the country have implemented it. If you are a customer, please demand it from your bank. As I said, this is a genie which has been unleashed. You cannot stop it. It's going to come. So why delay it? So the EBG is another product which is flows out of our DD. Again, I'll show you just this, just the West Bengal figures. Slightly better off compared to DD, but if you see the numbers, and incidentally, EBG is a more recent phenomenon. It's just launched around 6 months back. So again, West Bengal needs to do more. I would love West Bengal to do more. I keep coming back to this beautiful city, and I hope when I come back next time, so numbers will improve. But it is incumbent on all of us. It is we as a people, as a resident of this beautiful city, it is we have to do this. So one last concluding slide. This is the last concluding slide. We saw yesterday SBI had very good results. All banks have shown beautiful results. All banks have shown very little defaults, NPAs. But if you see this data, if you see the last column, there are around 15,000 debtors who have defaulted. But they have not defaulted to banks. Because today, if you default to a bank, it's reported to PILC, it comes in public domain. So there are a lot of implications. But if you see, there are 15,000 debtors who have defaulted, but they have banking limits with the banks, but they have defaulted to others. Who would have defaulted? I think there was a reference to MSMEs. They don't get paid on time. So these are the defaults which have happened. And why I am telling you this? Because for every default, we give a default alert. And this is for the month of March. So in the month of March, we have issued default alerts of around 78,000. And all these alerts have gone to banks that your debtor has not defaulted to you, but it has defaulted to some other person. It could be a private financial creditor, it could be an operational creditor, it could be an NBFC. So it's just an alert to you. Please take care, please protect your interest. In the morning also there was a reference that generally there is a delay in the initiation of CIRP. So this is a warning to you. A default has been done by your debtor, not to you, but to some other creditor. Please do take care, review your exposure. If necessary, take steps to protect your interest, maybe even initiate CIRP. I think I will conclude my presentation and I will be more than happy to take the questions if anybody wants to ask me.
So what is the process of getting a registered individual?
So,
Individual can
it's very simple. Idea is only to identify a person. And remember, IU is a very equitable in the sense that any creditor can submit information. If you're a private creditor, if you're an operational creditor, you can submit information. The only requirement is registration, which involves identification.
It cannot be an individual who is not a financial.
Individual can also be a, if you see some of the alerts have even gone to individuals.
And if I want form number D to be downloaded for any party, it can be done.
Which one?
Form number D.
Record of default. So there's a procedure for issuance of record of default. You have to file the information of default, and the information has to be authenticated. After the process of authentication, you can default it yourself. It is not a public document. No. Default is a very sensitive issue.
This record of default which is maintained by the LCE government from which period?
See, record of default is maintained. IU maintains all records till the closure of the account. But in respect of the same date, once the information gets updated, so a fresh record of default is issued, but that record of default has the prior credit history also. So the entire history is maintained.
Since which year you have been maintaining?
Since 2018.
2018.
Sir, I have a question. Sir, as a RP, I am your customer. As a RP, I am your customer, so I am looking for my own delight. Meaning that today, during the process of CIRP, we have to file multiple forms, reports to IPAs, to ICAI, can all these be integrated in one so that we can save time in filling those forms, same information multiple times, to multiple people? So can you give us some comfort?
I can give you lots of comfort. In fact, this gives me an opportunity to address an issue which was raised earlier. Somebody said here, a working day, IP does not have a holiday. We have a platform which sets the IP free. I was earlier in ICAI, and during the period of COVID, we found that we could not conduct inspection of IPs because they said, my office is in a lockdown area. So my solution to you is, there's something called a platform for distressed assets. Platform for distressed assets. You can contact me later. If you are not aware, we can let you know. Platform for distressed assets is an end-to-end solution. If you're an operational character, you can even use it for sending the demand notice prior to initiation of application under Section 9. It's an end-to-end process. It provides and generates all the forms and reports required. The only challenge today is that it is not integrated with the IBK, because that's something the regulator has not yet provided. That's something you have to take up to the IBK. But as of now, entire forms, reports can be generated through this platform for distressed assets. And also to answer this earlier gentleman, I think is not there, it sets the IP free. You need not be discount, you need not debound your room, you can access the platform from anywhere. You can also authorize your representative to access the data and have a full audit trail. There are many IPs who use email for communication of sensitive data like valuation reports, but they are risked in that. If you use a platform for distressed assets, sensitive information like valuation report, resolution plans, they can be uploaded directly onto the platform. See, tomorrow there's an allegation that valuation report has got, somebody else has got access to the valuation report. If you are there on the platform, you can say that this was accessed on so-and-so date and this is the audit trail. So you have a full audit trail of the entire history of the document, who has accessed it. So you can prove that the valuation report has not fallen into the hands of an unauthorized person. Similarly for resolution plans.
Hello. Hello. Suppose we registered some unsecured private loan with NASL. Will the law of limitation apply to it? And will it get time card after 3 years?
All provisions of law will of course be applicable. It doesn't mean that the provisions of law will not be applicable. Of course it will become applicable.
It is also an acknowledgement of late by the...
See, there are two parts to it. Now, the issue is whether when a person acknowledges a debt, when the NASL sends a request for authentication, can it be treated as acknowledgement of debt? So that has not been established as of now. No, it has not been established as of now. There could be a case for it. Because whatever information which is submitted, whatever information which the debtor gives, even the confirmation of debt, that happens through digital signature. So there could be a case for it, but it's yet to be established.
Sir, as an RP during the CRP process, when we get the resolution plan or when we check for a fraudulent transaction, an avoidance transaction, you want to say. So as an RP, we should get free access to the NSA, not free means free-based maybe, but that the information should be available to the RP because it will be very easier while they do 29-day check, maybe doing the forensic audit, maybe doing the other process. I think right now it is not available, and it is very important that when we talk about IBC and the information is not available to the RP, then I am. So that
information are you?
Information about any, suppose now I have a XYZ company as a resolution applicant. Now to see whether that resolution applicant has ever defaulted or any record is there with the IU, I do not have access to the NAC. How that can be done?
Can be done. I'll tell you it can be done. You see, the way the access system works, access is to the debtor whose information is there, to the creditors, to the debt. But there is a third interesting provision. Any other person whom the CD authorizes. So if I were the IP in your place, I will tell the resolution applicant, I want to see your information in the IU. Please authorize me. You take the authority letter and come to me. I will give you access.
The problem is not the one layer. You see, problem is at the third layer, fourth layer, or fifth layer.
That is not necessary.
That should be available.
So in that case, you have to get the authority from that person, that second person or third person. So the way our access works is PAN number. You have to give the PAN number, you have to take this approved for access and give it access.
Thank you everyone. Thank you Mr. Chaudhary. We have come to a very fruitful session. Now I request CA Kolkata to offer a vote of thanks to Mr. Chaudhary.
I request Tarun Gupta to come on the dais.
So friends, the next program that we are organizing under the banner of ACAI Study Circle is the GST Conclave. So this is an announcement for that. It is on 17th of June at the same place, on the hall on the first floor. We have invited chief guest as the Honorable Chief Justice of Kolkata High Court, and the guest of honor is Chief Commissioner. The special guest is our very own CA Sushil Goyal ji. Dignitaries from all over the country are going to come and speak. CA Jatin Christopher, Advocate J.K. Mittal, and Advocate Bharat Raichandani from Bombay. They are going to come and speak on various topics of compliance, litigation and enforcement. We have also invited the Principal Commissioner, Shri Ashish Chandanji. The last session will be a panel discussion in which Mr. Khalid Anwar will be there, Mr. Sudhir Chatterjee, ex-CFO of DIC India, and the other three speakers in the day, and it will be moderated by C. Arun Agarwalji. So I would request all of you to please register for this very exciting GST conclave, 17th of June next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Tarun, for the announcement of GST conclave scheduled to be held in the month of the June. With these words, thank you, sir. On behalf of the ACA members present, all professionals, I take once again the opportunity to extend vote of thanks to sir. This was an excellent and interactive sessions covering topic role of information utility in the IBC. Sir has also covered economic drivers, pillar of IBCs, and procedure and practical aspects of information utility. As sir stated, GST has many fold aspects for the economic drive. We would say GST is one of the important pillar for the economic growth. And as we all know, in the April 2023, GST has highest revenue collections of 1.87 lakh crores. With these words, sirs, this was an excellent sessions. We all benefit from these sessions, and information utility is a very, very important words in the IBC arena. All we must know, sir, you will very well cover these topics. Thank you, sir. Give a good round of applause for the sir. Now we have next sessions 4 to 5:30. Please be seated because it is also going to be a very good session. So please be seated. Thank you very much.